Welcome to the Fantasy Football Clown Show. I'm your host, Ed, along with my co-hosts, Justin and Brad. Today, coming to you with part 3, all-in quarterback. And we're going to just lead off the week with Brad finished up with his draft in the Elite Eight. He's just going to kind of break down some of his strategy. He was holding it all back because he didn't want everybody to know what he was up to. So we kind of allowed him to wait till he was totally done before we put him out here to tell about his team and what he has going on. So, Brad, I'll let you kind of talk through what were you trying to accomplish in the draft, and then did you accomplish it? You know, what you set out to when you set out.
I think going into the draft, I had the 12 spot, so I was kind of looking at just kind of taking who was falling to me. So like with my first 2 picks, I went Najee and Trey Lance. So I tried to stay young there, and after that, I decided that I would probably try to stay young throughout my whole team and get the most value I possibly could. Definitely tried to fade wide receivers, just because, like you said in previous episodes, you can definitely fade them because they're found a lot of different places. I'm excited just because with the tight ends, especially, like I was able to get Hawkinson in the 4th and Irv Smith in like the 11th or 12th, and I think that'll be a pretty good duo in a 3-point PPR league for tight ends, like especially since a guy like Irv Smith is coming off a season-ending injury to where people don't really know what's expected of him yet. But with the new look offense, I think it could be pretty cool. And then I obviously tried to go with a kind of a little bit more of running backs just to take handcuffs. So because other than quarterbacks, like running backs obviously get hurt the most because they face the most contact. So I feel like if I have handcuffs, they'll definitely be able to be sold for future picks or some talent that could help me kickstart the rest of my team.
Gotcha. I want to just kind of fire you. I think you kind of downplay the tight ends, but yeah, the top 2 are good, but you have 5. You know, Tommy Tremble and Bates, and then I saw Everett up in the flex, and so you put that with Irv Smith and Hawkinson, and now you have 5 realistically starting tight ends currently, especially depending on what happens with Bates in Washington. But I mean, you know, there's 12 teams in this league. If everybody had 5, that would be 60. So you get the numbers. You know, the numbers game with 3-point PPR. It seems like you could actually conceivably put some flex tight ends in the flex and feel pretty good about your situation. So that's one thing that I noticed. And Hawkinson, Irv Smith, and Tremble are all young, and Bates, they're all young. So you really got a lot under 25 tight ends, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually able to draft Daniel Bellinger in my rookie draft as well. So in the 5th round. So I think I'm gonna I'll be all right for tight ends at least.
And then I guess that's one thing. And then I noticed that you also went kind of heavy on quarterbacks. So you're young with Mac Jones and Trey Lance as second-year players. But then, you know, you went and handcuffed guys behind Daniel Jones. So you have 3 like starting quarterbacks. So you're filling in, but then you have a bunch of handcuffed guys, and maybe Geno Smith is a starter. But Nick Foles is definitely a high leverage handcuff. Sam Darnold's a high leverage handcuff. And Tyrod Taylor's a high leverage handcuff. So if anything ever happened to any of those quarterbacks that are starting, we know for sure that those guys will get the first crack and run a reasonable offense and score reasonable points. And so, you know, I feel like you used high leverage handcuffs at the quarterback position. Is that intentional?
Even Kellen Mond I got too, and I feel like if Kirk Cousins goes down, like he's got a shot. He can at least run the offense. You know, like he's not going to be a scrub out there with the weapons they have. But
what questions do you have, Justin? Do you have anything that?
Yeah. I have a few things to add. I noticed in your rookie draft, you took James Cook and Damian Pierce. What, what what is your opinion overall on them?
Um, I kind it's not that I'm as high on them as a lot of people are, but I'm definitely lower on most of the receivers in this class than most people are. So I'm like I feel like I can definitely find a Garrett Wilson or Sky Moore somewhere else other than the first round of a rookie draft. Like, but running backs at especially starting running backs, they'll go for a lot more than like a Sky Moore as a number 2 receiver on a good team will be,
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Okay. I understand that. Well, I hope so because I just took both of them in my home dynasty draft too. So let's hope so.
and I mean they definitely have a lot of hype in preseason at least, so we'll see, but they're interesting.
Gotcha. Taking a look ahead at living on the edge as we get into all in quarterback part three. Just want to just dive into some of those as we move into the rest of that series. And this is the final time of the series, and I want to talk a little bit about some of these teams in maybe even greater detail. But living on the edge is a 14-team league, so another one of those 14-team leagues. So it's really deep. And here, just drafted a bunch of quarterbacks again, and now I feel like there just isn't, doesn't have that kind of that kind of quarterback that can lead the team. So, how quick the quarterback world changed here, I guess you could say, and that's something that happens if you don't get away from it here. And I got my teams all kind of to moved around, but I start with Josh Allen, but everything after that there isn't any. So it feels really naked. So I always kind of say, hey, if you have the best one, that's good. But if you have nothing behind it in a 14-team, 2 quarterback league, you still are going to have to find your way to points. And so there isn't any guarantees there. But and any feedback you guys can give me, because I'd like to figure out how to get this team to a winning team here in year three, because here we are, year three, and it's fine with the receiver room. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the receiver room with Jamar Chase, but he doesn't have any quarterbacks, so I don't know, how smart.
I think it's all right. I think even your running back room is all right. You definitely would need to upgrade your tight end, but your quarterbacks will be fine. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I think you're on the cusp of being great or being very mediocre with this team. Like it could go either way, honestly. But that's a lot of the teams in the league, because I know I'm in the same league and I'm trotting out guys like Geno Smith as my QB1. So it's a toss up.
Yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase feels really good to me. Josh Allen feels really good to me. But when you get beyond that, so I always say if you have two first round picks, that's not bad. But got the number 1 quarterback and one of the top 3 receivers probably. But beyond that, it gets kind of rough pretty quick. It's going to come down to maybe how good is the other team. I have 2 first round picks coming up in 2023, and so and make sure that Josh Allen doesn't get hurt, because we're one injury of one player away from this team being the last place team almost. I mean, that's how ridiculously easy it gets. So I digress, but that's kind of what I see with this team. And so Justin's going to co-own this team with me, or co-manage this team with me this year. So we're going to work hard on this one. This is kind of one of the projects. I kind of pick out project teams over the course of the year. And I guess our goal, Brad, is to beat you. So just know that we're going to really be checking in after Christmas and see if we have a Merry Christmas on the Justin Edge side, or if maybe it's not quite as merry. So we're going to remember this little breakdown here and see how we do compared to your team. So anyway, all in quarterback, we did try, but all we have left is Josh Allen because the rest of the guys were a bunch of scrubs. So moving on, and this, I wanted to get all the 14 team leagues out of the way, so that's kind of why we went to this team. But this team is the first IDP team. I didn't know it was an IDP team. It's affectionately known as Paramount Dynasty. I just jumped in it. It was back when I had a COVID illness, and so this is kind of where fantasy football dynasty, the extravaganza really started for me. Was this team and just kind of where it went. And I've asked Brad a little bit to talk about the emotion that was involved. I was sick laying on the couch, like drafting, not even understanding what was happening, but just kind of thinking, well, I won my dynasty league the last 2 years, so I must be pretty good at this. And the one dynasty team I had, and so I thought, well, I can win, and I started drafting this team, and then it kind of went up a world of its own. Now this team is really all in quarterback, like 27 quarterbacks in 52 rounds, all in quarterback. So, Brad, what did you see in the draft? Because you were my co-owner, and what happened? How did it go? And
it was definitely one of the more interesting leagues I've been a part of. During the draft, like you said, you went all in quarterback, and honestly, the strong criticism, I guess we'll call it, started coming pretty fast after your first or second quarterback taken. So they started kind of reeling in on you, and just for taking a QB or two, and then you decided to kind of shove it in their face once that happened, and you decided to go taking a bunch of quarterbacks, and that definitely kicked the boat a little bit. But they were definitely saying some stuff that was just not right for a fantasy football league, I guess.
Well, I guess I take away from it is that they just thought that this team was that A, I was gonna leave the league, B, that the team could never win, and I was like intentionally destroying the team. And I think that's what hit me the hardest is they really thought that my competitiveness wasn't there, that I was really punting. And people that know me know that I don't ever punt. I'm very stubborn. I try to do it my way, but I'm really competitive and I don't like to lose. And so the questioning of, hey, I'm just trying to lose was almost laughable. And then this team, yeah, it did lose in year one. It did. It was built to lose in year one. I actually didn't draft any running backs. Like, they were terrible. Like, I had no running backs. Like, Tyreek Cohen was my RB1. But by design, kind of, because at that point I figured, you know what, if the team can't win anyway, why draft a bunch of running backs that are going to get old and get hurt? I'll just pick them in the rookie draft the next couple of years with those first round picks, and I'll have all these quarterbacks, and then all of a sudden I'll have running backs. And I kept saying to myself, and I think I even put this on the board, as long as you have Pat Mahomes on your team in a one quarterback, one super flex league, as long as your quarterback is Pat Mahomes, the team can't be that bad. Like, it's got to really have a shot. Like, you really have a shot as long as you have Pat Mahomes on your team. Like, I always feel like the Chiefs have a shot because they have Pat Mahomes on their team. Like, they really have a legitimate shot at going to the Super Bowl, whether they trade Tyreek Hill or not. They always have a shot, and that's how I felt about my fantasy team. And so I churned it around, and I quickly bought Leonard Fournette for free when he got cut by the Jaguars. I just picked him up for like this dumb trade, and I just got him for free. And then, you just keep twirling around, and I look at my receivers now, and I have two receivers that always start, and I've got like studs, and then I have studs at running back, and then it just like morphed into something. And yeah, oh, by the way, the quarterbacks are pretty good. I mean, they're not excellent, but again, I still have Pat Mahomes. And so whenever you have Pat Mahomes, I have Tua, I have Wentz, Baker. There's enough of that there, but then there's guys like Kenneth Gainwell and Michael Carter as backup running backs are just sitting there waiting, and Romeo Doubs and Sky Moore and Hunter Renfrow. Picking Hunter Renfrow in the 25th round, like, That's a pretty good pick. Like, it's Hunter Renfro is okay. That wasn't bad. Mike Williams in the 20th round wasn't bad. Like those were pretty good picks, and those kind of players have a shot to be on a winning team. And so this team finished second last year and almost felt better. And I lost the championship, and that was what it was. But to finish second in year number 2, this might have been the most fun I ever had in fantasy football because they seriously were saying things like I couldn't win in 2030. Like, we don't even know who's going to be on. I'm like dead by 2030. Like, I mean, I'm just thinking to myself, like, we don't even know if Pat Mahomes is going to be playing in 2030. Like, that's almost like a stupid statement. And so, anyway, I digress. But, Justin, you probably can take a fresh set of eyes at it. I think this team is pretty good. And for a team that is awful, like, was told to be, like, absolutely awful just in its third year is not awful. Like, you can't tell me it's awful.
Oh yeah. Just looking at based on when you first started the draft, you went with Patrick Mahomes and Hill, and then it was another quarterback there, and I guess that's when the people started tagging, talking not very nice to you guys. Let's put it that way, and. It started that's when you started taking all your extra quarterbacks. But I also noticed that you kind of went on runs. You took a run of quarterbacks, run of receivers, run of running backs to just kind of help spread it out a little bit. But I noticed when you get in the middle to later of the rounds, like here in the 24th round, you went Taysom Hill, Robert Griffin III, Jack Fromm, Jake Luton, and then just Hunter Renfro and Tyler Johnson. I mean, yeah, some of those names aren't currently playing, and I can absolutely see why that how the first year ended. But now, I mean, you have Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews at your two tight ends. And easy to plug them in, your tight end, your flex. Got the top 2 tight ends in the league now. I mean, that's a no-brainer. And then you have your Tua and Patrick Mahomes at your 1-2 and as a super flex, which I really like that. And then I noticed that you decided to kind of wait on your defensive players, kind of take them later in the draft when doing the startup. It's not a great idea. Because me personally, there's going to be plenty of defensive players to go out there and grab off the waiver wire each and every week just to plug and play.
And I think you'll notice that all the guys I drafted, those defensive players that I drafted, aren't even on the team anymore. Like, I've recycled them all because to waste high-end draft picks on guys that I'm going to probably just drop, why not take a shot on Jake Fromm? Why not take a shot on Jake Luton? Jake Luton actually started some NFL football games that year, and I think I actually traded him away for stuff. So as crazy as we laugh about Jake Luton today, he did start Jaguars games in 2020, and he did bring back second and third round rookie picks, which turn into guys like Devonta Smith and Kenny Gainwell. So we kind of laugh about those kind of picks, and at least I do. But if they turn into guys like Kenny Gainwell, did it make sense? And we all jump up and down and say, yeah, that made a lot of sense. And there's none of those defensive players that I cut that could ever have a chance at turning into Kenny Gainwell. Like, they just don't even have a chance. I mean,
exactly.
Really, they just don't even have a chance. So that's kind of. And in this league, I made a lot of mistakes. Like, I made some trading mistakes. Traded Tyreek Hill, thought it was Taysom Hill. Just boneheaded, didn't understand sleeper mistakes that I made in this league. Like, I traded away Joe Burrow. Imagine this team with Joe Burrow. I traded him away. And, while 2 firsts and 2 seconds sounds really good, when it's 111 and 112 in 2 consecutive years, and 211 and 212 in those same years, it didn't make that much sense because, as you know, when you're an 11th and 12th, you made money. So I helped somebody else make money, and last year I helped them beat me. So that really made a lot of sense. Like, so,
Yeah.
it just it's even an illogical thing. So sometimes we look at picks and say, oh, that's great. You got 2 firsts and 2 seconds. But we look back and we say, well, geez, I actually cost myself the win because I was stupid. So I look at that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm probably really, I mean, I know that, I said earlier here that I'm really competitive, and I go even that far as to look at it, say, you know what, that was so, not only was it a dumb trade, it beat me. So it was even stupid, like it was even more ridiculous. Like, even if Burrow's on my bench, it's better than beating me. Like, it doesn't even make sense. It was an illogical move. And I traded him when he was hurt. So it wasn't even, actually felt like that was a pretty good trade because he's hurt, and I'm trading away a guy that's hurt. So that, I digress. But want to keep us moving on, and that, but wanted to spend some time because that's why this whole philosophy, and I was really anxious to see how all-in quarterback would come out based on that. And it was, a lot of it was based on the emotion that was shown there. Like we talked about, maybe it was negative emotion, but I really felt like the more emotional people get, the more they'll make mistakes. And so it kind of gave me a good key of where things are. Looking at Dino League, and I want to be careful because I like this league. I like the guys in this league, and Brad plays in this league, so these are all things. But this league this year, in year 3, has now decided that they're going to add IR. And while I'm a fan of adding IR, and I thought it was ridiculous that we didn't add IR, is last year and the year before when there was COVID, I would have really liked to have IR. And now all of a sudden they've added IR when I don't need IR near as bad. And they thought I was an idiot for ever suggesting IR. So that's kind of frustrating. But I'm really trying to take a more mellow approach to things. But now, because the people in charge of said league need IR this year based on their players, we've all of a sudden figured out that we're going to have IR. So, it's very much like, when it benefits certain individuals in the league, we really push for that. When it doesn't benefit, however, it is a league that Brad and I both play in, so I try to be, good. And then I'll also say that this league, I have 13 players over the limit. So this is kind of an extreme situation where there's a lot of cut downs. And so I'll probably be leaning on Justin a lot to try to get us to the cut down. Now, there's some junk on here to get rid of, and just kind of waiting for things to evolve. But that's this league. And yet I'm very pleased with an all-in quarterback, build here, that it's got enough, pieces to the puzzle that it could win. I'll throw the ball to you guys and let me know what you think of the team, and does it have a shot?
I don't know if it has a shot this year, but I think it's definitely getting to be pretty good. Like, you're definitely getting there, and you also have 2 firsts next year. So I think if you're able to play your cards right, you'll probably be pretty good, like a dynasty, honestly, in this league in the next year or 2, I would say.
Well, then 2024, there's 4 first-round picks. So then all of a sudden we got, all kinds of stuff coming in 2024. So it'll have its moment, if these guys that we have right now don't turn into something, then we'll double down in 2 years and really.
Well, I would just temper expectations with rookies. Like, I just wouldn't expect them to lead you to the playoffs this year yet,
And maybe I'll trade off some of the pieces this year to get even more rookie picks in 2024, and just kind of try to have 6 or 7 rookie picks, and then all of a sudden it's really, going to be tough to, you just own the draft. You just own the draft, and so it's control. Looking at heroes is our final stop on the tour of all-in quarterback, and so just kind of, this one's 6 players over. This league, I guess I want to just throw out here, I really appreciate some of the people in this league. They've really taught me how to be polite with people that send trades that maybe I think are just imbalanced. And I appreciate some of the people here because it didn't matter how imbalanced I'd send a trade, they always responded kindly to me, and I never knew how to take it. Like, and it set me back, and it actually got me to start to respond that way to other people because I try to play a psychological game, and I was like, these guys are beating me at my own game because they're just more mild mannered than me, and that's not what I'm trying to do. Like, I want them to react, and I send these trades, and he's just like, oh, hey, thanks for the offer. It's just not what I'm going to do. And I'm like, I know you're not going to do it because it sucks for you. Like, I know that you're not going to do it. I did that on purpose. And I just couldn't get a rouse out of him. And I couldn't get him to fire back that I was a name of some sort. And it just didn't matter how ridiculous the trade would be. I mean, I tried to get him to react, and I just couldn't get him to react. And I said, okay, so this guy is playing the psychological game with me, and he's winning. And so I'm like, you know what? I started doing that, and it's amazing what's happened in some of my other leagues. So I just, thanks for the offer. Appreciate you sending it over. This is what I'm thinking. Just not where I'm going to go. And they get mad. And so exactly where I want them. And sometimes I fully intend to trade the player they want, but I just, no, thank you. I'm just going to stay, with where I am. And then they want him more. And then I say, no, I'm going to stay. And then they want him even more. And then I say, no, and I just stay. And they want him even more. And then I create another little bid against themselves kind of scenario where all of a sudden they start offering me these things that become almost outlandish. And when I accept it, the league blows up. And I'm like, well, I just said yes. I didn't ask for anything. I just said yes. Like, I don't know, or I'll be like, oh, I have 9 quarterbacks. I don't think I want to trade them. I don't know what they're worth. And why don't you ask, oh, that guy has 3. Why don't you ask him for 1? And I know them got to start 2. And, I know he can't sell it for anything. He's got to sell it for a king's ransom, right? Oh, he's got 2 and he starts 2. Why don't you ask him for 1? Let's see how that works, And I know good and well that, he's going to want your best player. Like, well, just let him set the market. Like, I don't know. And that's kind of what creates. And then when they do trade for this outlandish price, I chuckle to myself because I'm like, well, I guess if Daniel Jones is worth 3 first-round picks, I don't know what Kyler Murray's got to be worth, but maybe 6. I mean, so maybe I'll just do that. You're like, I didn't set the market. You guys set the market. Like, I don't know what he's worth, but I know he's better than Daniel Jones. Would you agree? And that's kind of what I come out with. Like, I don't know. That's what. Oh, he's dumb. Well, I don't know. I saw the same trade you did. You can say dumb all you want, but apparently dumb is what works around here. And so that's where all-in quarterback and just playing it well. So I want to give this guy for Heroes a lot of credit because that's where I really adopted that philosophy, and I just let other people, create my values. And so why I'm really against trade calculator because I don't think you can account for any emotion. And I usually talk about it not account for scoring, but really it can't account for emotion. And this is so emotional that you just play on the emotion. And to be successful in fantasy, and just to wrap this whole thing up and button it up, fantasy can be about emotion. And I really jumped into this full bore because of the stock market. And I really feel like this is like trading stocks. It's all commodity moving around. And if you're a good day trader, you don't get caught in the emotional wave. And so you're trading against other stockbrokers that are also unemotional, the good ones, and they're capitalizing on people that are novices that just come in with panic and buy and sell and panic, and you just play contrarian to the panic people. So here in fantasy football, it's maybe a lesser skilled intellectual person that you play against because they're playing for fun, not bad, just reality. So here, when you trade players, again, you're just traded on emotion. And so you sell hype, you buy news. And so if you really never learn anything else from this series, really, that's what my takeaway would be is you sell the hype. Whenever players get hyped up, off season, this is the hype season of hype season. maybe Pacheco will be great. History tells us Andy Reid's running backs take 3 years. I didn't make it up. We'll see what happens with CEH. It's just Brian Westbrook is the case study. We knew that Kareem Hunt, even though that was in year 1, was coming. There was a lot of history of how they went about that draft and why that happened. The normal running back in an Andy Reid offense is a 3-year plan. He does not trust rookies. Very similar to Tom Brady doesn't trust rookies. So if we think that White is going to be a thing this year, we're well mistaken. Like, it just probably won't happen. Won't matter what the hype train is. It's just not how they do it. And so maybe it's a hot take. Maybe you'll look back and say, "Man, Ed, you were wrong. It's a hot take." But what I'm telling you is, at least history tells us that's how it's going to go. So if you learn nothing else, it's really just watch history. Figure history has a good chance of repeating itself. And those are just 2 quick examples that I guess I hope to look back upon that maybe the common people in America won't look back upon and see, and we'll be able to look back in December and say, wow, okay, yeah, that's really, we could see that happen. My biggest claim to fame really was I bet on last year, Trey Lance getting picked by the 49ers, made money on that at high odds. And to me, it was very obvious. There was no way, whether we like Mac Jones or not, there was no way that the 49ers would trade from 12 to 2. Just would trade from 12 to 2 and give up the resources to get a player they probably could get at 12. There was never any reason to think they couldn't get that player at 12. So logically, it didn't make any sense to make the move if Mac Jones was really their guy. And it was right there for us all to see. But the money was bet on Mac Jones. So there was a lot of money to be made on Trey Lance. And I guess I think it felt really obvious to me. Like, I never really doubted it, honestly. It just never was a doubt. And I remember driving there, and an analyst was on the radio saying, oh, it's definitely Mac Jones, the pick on draft day. And I was driving to bet it because I couldn't bet in Connecticut. And it was just funny that I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm glad I just was stubborn and didn't listen, because they were matter of fact that Mac Jones was the pick. And I remember being in the batting cage that afternoon and seeing the odds just change to everybody betting on Trey Lance. And at that point, I knew that I was at a winner, because Vegas just turned on a dime. And so I knew that they knew that Trey Lance was the pick. And so in my parting words, that's kind of really what I think it's important to do, is take a step back, not be emotional, look at the facts, and figure out, how can I apply those facts to my fantasy league and then win money? Take the money that's given. Don't force money. Take the money that's given. Sell hype. Buy news. For now, that's all. We're excited to be coming with the preview shows next week. Tongue twister there. And that's all for now. The Fantasy Football Clown Show.